Welcome. Welcome to Vilniaus University. It's really nice to see you all here. We're happy to greet you at the beautiful city of Vilnius and the beautiful University of Vilnius for our international conference on the demographic transition, policy implications of fertility and aging trends. I'm Ekaterina Navicka, and I'm an associate professor at Vilnius University Social Policy Department. And this conference is organized jointly with the International Network for Social Policy Teaching and Research, the Berklyje Social Welfare and the University of Maryland. It's really great we can come here, join all together and discuss such an urgent and important topic, both academically and politically. So I will be moderating this introductory session. So we'll have several greetings. Without further ado, I would like to invite the Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy, University of Vilnius, the faculty that hosts Social Policy Department and our study programs, to greet the conference.
Good afternoon. I'm very happy and proud to be here as a Dean of the Faculty of Philosophy. I thought that some of you may wonder why Faculty of Philosophy is hosting the Department of Social Policy and other departments in social sciences, but this is an old university, and Faculty of Philosophy, as a Dean, I feel obliged to tell our guests all the time, it has been one of the two faculties that were established together with the university in 1579. There was a Faculty of Theology, which we don't have at the university at the moment, but Faculty of Philosophy held basically all the sciences back then. So there was Department of Physics, the Department of Mathematics, or actually courses of physics and courses of mathematics and courses of philosophy, including that. There was no social policy as a distinct subject back then, I guess, but the faculty was closed later at some reforms that were imposed towards the end of our independent state. And then it was only recovered by the university in 1989. And in 1989, the Faculty of Philosophy came back to Vilnius University as the faculty which held social sciences. So there was a department of sociology, a department of psychology, and a department of philosophy in there. It grew. Now it includes also a department or institute of Asian and transcultural studies, and also an Institute of Education Sciences. So it's the Faculty of Philosophy. It holds the name philosophy, I usually like to say, as in the abbreviation like PhD, where we say Doctor of Philosophy for people specializing in various branches of sciences. So philosophy is broader than just a particular subject. So our faculty welcomes all directions that were basically absent in the 50 years of the Soviet rule. So we had quite a lot of things that were restricted and couldn't be discussed in social sciences and humanities. And it coincided, our faculty was reestablished in 1989 when we had the Baltic Way and the Way of Independence and all these things that are bringing us to where we are now. And I'm very happy and very proud that this event is also part of the life of our faculty, as we hope that our faculty is an important agent in shaping public discourse and public debates on pressing social and human issues. And one of those things we have recently been discussing in the Dean's meeting as well, the implications of fertility to the future of our university, so that we really have a quite melancholically, quite melancholic demographic trends, and we don't really know what to expect in future in here.
Neither do we.
Yeah, so it's a shared concern, and I'm very happy that it also it has the practical implications for policy that hopefully will be caught up and picked up by our people in the government, and they will shape the policy according to the best knowledge that we have. I'm very happy that you are here. Very warm welcome, and I hope you have 2 impressive and productive days. Thank you.
Okay. And now I have to announce a slight amendment to the program because due to a very intensive parliamentary session which is ongoing, our Vice Minister Eitvydas Bingelis couldn't attend. So the welcome speech will be delivered by the advisor to the Minister of Social Affairs and Labor, Ekaterina Navickia, who is also myself. Okay, so first of all, I would like to welcome again all of you, but now on behalf of the Minister, Inga Ruginienė. She's currently in Ukraine and couldn't attend this meeting. However, she sends and extends very warm welcome to this conference. And the conference, as already was mentioned, focuses on very important demographic issues of fertility and aging. So within these 2 days, there will be a number of topics discussed today, starting with migration, then pensions and long-term care, demographic responses and policy changes, fertility and family formation, employment and aging society. So all these are very important issues for sure. And I probably want to stress 2 parts. So first is fertility, and the second aging, as named in the name of the conference. So with regard to both, the current government that has started its term just recently in late November, these 2 issues are among the main priorities. So on the policy side, this reflects in first the family policy and the very important pension system that we have. So Lithuania, now you are here, arrived from different countries and different places on this globe. Lithuania is a small country and faces some important challenges. So probably you may know that we are not the most aged population in Europe. The most aged are probably the southern countries, yeah, especially like Italy. But Lithuania is among the most rapidly aging countries. So you will also hear from our demographers today more on that. And there are challenges. So, but with all these challenges, I would maybe share with you one success and one ongoing and pressing issue, I would say. So the success would be the following. As you may know, Lithuania doesn't stand up with very good results with respect to poverty in the EU context. So very recently, the most recent statistics were released, which shows that Lithuania probably would score 3rd worst according to the at-risk of poverty rate in the EU, which is to our deep sorrow. But there is one success story, and this success story began back probably in 2018, when after fierce discussions, there was a decision to introduce universal child benefits in Lithuania. Before that, we had the child poverty statistics well above average, and a very big issue. It still remains an issue, but now we are in 2025. The promise and the commitment to keep this policy for universal child benefits remains, and we see a consistent trend of reduction in child poverty in Lithuania, which is now well below the average in the population, which is not the case actually, and not a rule across the EU. However, as I mentioned, I will also tell a little bit about the pressing challenges, and for sure, aging and poverty risk among the elderly population, which is at 38%, is a very deep concern also for this government. And we had an impressive economic growth here in Lithuania within the last several decades, but this economic growth didn't translate automatically into good social outcomes. It requires effort and political effort and redistribution. So currently, as I mentioned, there is a kind of a very hot period in the government and in the parliament. There are two major reforms on the way. One is about collection of taxes, so the changes to our tax system, because we need to fund the system. And the other one is the changes to our pension system. And for sure, I think today and tomorrow we will speak a lot about sustainability, yes, because aging always comes with this challenge, yes, to keeping our system sustainable. But what I would like to stress, that sustainability has several parts to it, and one of them is for sure an economic sustainability. So looking at, for example, the EU Aging and Pension Adequacy Report, we see that Lithuanian pension system economically is very sustainable, actually. We currently spend only 6.4% of GDP on pensions, and it is forecasted that with the current system, if nothing is changed, in 2070 we will spend 9.8%, so a decrease of 3 percentage points within the 50 coming years. So very sustainable economically the system is. The 9.8%, okay, let's round up to 10, would be for Lithuania in 2070 below the level that EU countries spend on average on pensions now. So yes. However, another phase of sustainability is for sure social sustainability. So I think these two parts of the coin should be always seen together, economic and social sustainability. And I think we need to raise this very strongly, both in academic research, but also applied research, in the reports and so on, because for sure such system with our demographic trends that you will hear about, yes, would be socially absolutely unsustainable. And politically, I would argue, also unsustainable, because the growing elderly population is the population who vote. Yes. So, finally, I would just like to stress that there are probably many challenges to aging, but actually that's a victory of our civilization, probably, an aging society, because we live longer, yes, and there are many positive aspects to it. We hear about the silver economy, we hear about active aging, positive aging, and so on. But also, I think that, especially within the EU debate, when we stress the active aging paradigm, it is very important that the elderly have a choice. So that it's a choice to stay economically active, that the health permits to do it, but that it's not a compulsion. So with that, I will probably round up my speech. And again, it's great to see you. And I look forward for this day and a half and for all the discussions. And now I would gladly give the floor to Neil Gilbert, probably, and Douglas Bishara. We are both on the program, but probably you'll just talk in turns. It's between you.
Just a welcome.
So please, Neil, probably, would you like to come up here?
No.
Yeah.
If I stand, it looks more serious.
Exactly.
Yeah. Welcome. First, I'd like to thank our gracious host, Jekaterina, for doing all this work and getting this beautiful building. Jonas, Diva, our hosts at Vilnius University have done a spectacular job for us, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much. And I'd like to thank you, members who have submitted your papers to this conference. Today and tomorrow, we're going to be talking about a very challenging trend in modern society, and a trend that creates serious issues for the modern welfare state. And that is the increasing aging of the population and the decreasing rate of fertility. Now, aging is as a member of that problem group, it's not really a problem. The issue is the rising dependency ratio and having fewer people around to care for and produce the goods and services necessary to support an increasing aging population and their pensions. We have a lot of really interesting papers that address these challenges, and I'm looking forward to a very stimulating conversation and presentations at the conference today. And I will pass it on to my good friend Douglas.
I'm just going to say a few words, standing on my toes, and then begin the program, I think, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
And so, in a moment, I'm going to call Jonas up. So let me thank our host as well. I won't repeat Neil, but let me also thank Neil for putting up with me. And many of you have been writing to Douglas Cole in the back. Doug, raise your hand way in the back. He is there to take care of us whenever we mess up. So before I introduce Jonas, let me just say, it's a strange world when we're worried about too few children. I remember when we were worried about too many children. And it was only a few decades ago when the issue was, where were we going to put all these people? And now we don't have them. And if you don't mind, Jonas, if I say to a dean, the answer to a smaller enrollment is smaller classes.
Which is good.
There you are. You have that? That's same salary.
Maybe even higher.
But you know, it is actually the case that our adjustments will have to be in many directions. And I was thinking whether I should say the impossible here. I'm of the same generation as Neil, almost. And the fact is, at some point, we'll have to say that people don't retire at 55 or 60 or 65 unless we're prepared to change our societies greatly. I mean, and that's the challenge. Somebody will have to pay for our lifestyle, and either we'll have to work a little longer, or we'll have to ask people to come to our countries from other places, and no one's really happy to do that. So Jonas Flukman has the answer to all this. The OECD, happily, this is quite a coincidence, and I'm looking for my notes, very happily has a project on this subject. And let me tell you that after you listen to Jonas, you'll say, well, there are the solutions, we have them. But let me introduce Jonas. Jonas is a labor economist and policy analyst specializing in social policy and labor markets for the OECD in the Division of Employment, Labor, and Social Affairs. and I'm reading this, but his work involves conducting analytic and policy-oriented research on labor market issues. And of course, that's the issue here. What do we do as we have an aging labor force? He has a PhD in labor economics from the University of Aarhus, is that how you say it, in Denmark? Aarhus, okay, sorry, my apologies. You know, Americans, they only speak a little bit of English. And it's just wonderful that he's come here to be with us. And I don't think I have anything more to say except, Jonas, welcome.
Maybe I'll move there so that we can see better. Slides, should be maybe session, plenary session here. Is this yours?
Yes, that's mine.
I think I'll move here so that they see back to the screen.
Perfect, yes. Thank you very much for the introduction, Doc. I don't claim to have all the answers for this. This is a very complicated problem, as you all know. But I'm going to talk a bit about the recent work that we did at the Directorate of Employment, Labor and Social Affairs on demographic change. There has been some recent work that has been getting quite some attention in our directorate, where we worked on country-specific reviews on fertility rates for South Korea and Norway, which are two quite interesting countries. We had two major reports on social policy, Society at a Glance 2024 and the 2025 Asia-Pacific version, that have both a detailed chapter on fertility trends, which is very interesting to read. We have a working paper on the role of family policies and employment for fertility, and some other work streams in the directorate on long-term care, pensions, job quality, and mobility, job quality and mobility for older workers. But what I'm going to talk about most today is the upcoming Employment Outlook 2025, which is the flagship publication in our directorate. And this year it's focused mainly on aging. So we have several thematic chapters that focus on population aging, demographic change, and the implications for labor markets, living standards, social cohesion, productivity, skills, and more. And this one will be launched on July 9th in Paris and online. As it's not out yet, I cannot give a detailed overview of the report yet, but I'll give a first glance at what the main problem is. So maybe this can introduce the sessions today a bit. So as we all know, population aging is of course a result from the slumping fertility and the increasing longevity of the population that we already heard about. So in the 1950s, 1960s, we still had TFRs from well above 3 on average in the OECD, but this has fallen to just about 1.5 today across the OECD countries. This is luckily not projected to fall much further if we look at the UN medium variant of the UN World Population Prospects, but the 1.5 TFR is of course very far away from population replacement and at 2.1. At the same time, we've also seen quite dramatic increases in life expectancy from 60 years in the 1950s to about 80 years today, and this is projected to increase even further to about 85 years by 2060. Now I'm going to talk briefly about two specific countries here that we worked on recently to give a bit more context on how countries can differ a lot but still face very similar problems to different degrees, of course, and that is South Korea and Norway. South Korea, of course, had a very high TFR, one of the highest ones in the OECD, in the 50s and 60s, of about 6 children, which has now fallen to about 0.8 children, which is obviously a massive problem for the future of the country. At the same time, the population has also, the life expectancy of Koreans has also increased to about 85 years today. And on the other hand, we have Norway, which is another country, and one country that we would in the OECD say is doing a lot of stuff right in terms of social policy. coverage of different systems, different countries, different situations. Exactly. So it's going to be a bit technical. I'm going to try to explain it very straightforward, but to get started with the background here, we have seen that productivity growth has been very weak, especially since the early 2000s, and has also been less inclusive as real wage growth has been slugging even behind the weak productivity growth. We think that this in part reflects the difficulty of workers and firms in adapting to fast structural change, especially in the context of workforce aging. And this, as I said, may undermine the ability of governments to support rising living standards and the well-being of the population going forward. And we think that the job mobility transition from one employer to another one and growing up on the job ladder has the potential to revitalize inclusive growth, especially because it facilitates growth-enhancing job relocation and hence aggregate growth in GDP, wages, productivity. So this is the main focus of this chapter. And here we want to determine the importance first of job mobility in growth-enhancing relocation, what it means for aggregate wage and productivity growth, but also how it takes place, whether it's through voluntary transitions from one employer to another one without being temporarily in non-employment, or whether it mostly happens through involuntary job mobility that also includes temporary spells out of employment. And then we want to look at how these patterns vary, especially across age groups, to say something about the role of aging and what that means for the future. Now what you see here is basically the average annual net employment growth across the distribution of wages and labor productivity. So if we just focus here on the left, on the wages, what we see is on the left in the quintile 1, those are the lowest paying firms, and in quintile 5, we have the highest paying firms. And what we see is that there's a consistent pattern of workers moving from the lowest paying firms to the highest paying firms, as we see negative net employment growth in the first quintile, and then positive net employment growth among the higher quintiles. So we basically see a reallocation of workers from less good firms to better firms. And this mostly happens through this voluntary job-to-job mobility, so moves from one employer to another one, rather than employment mobility that involves non-employment spells. This is quite interesting because it's a very consistent pattern across all the 17 countries that we look at. It's also consistent for productivity measures. And it's interesting because both mobility types, those that involve and those that don't involve time and unemployment, are equally important if we just look at the growth transitions on the labor market. But if we really look at those transitions that lead to growth in wages and in productivity, it's really the transition from one employer to another one, a direct transition that drives this. So this is very important for growth. Why is this a problem? The problem is that this growth-enhancing relocation declines considerably across age groups. So here we have basically a more synthetic version of the previous chart split by age groups. This basically shows the correlation of the firm quality in terms of wages or productivity with the net employment growth of these firms. So a higher level here means that firms, there's a stronger correlation, which means that workers, there's a stronger reallocation of workers from lower quality firms to higher quality firms. As you can see, this drops quite a bit from the youngest workers, aged 15 to 24, to the oldest workers, where it even turns negative, as older workers tend to retire from relatively well-paying and high-productivity firms. And most of these patterns are actually driven by job-to-job mobility. So there seems to be a consistent decline in how often older workers move to other firms, and also how strong these moves are, how wage increasing or productivity increasing these moves are. And now if we consider the changes in the population structure that we all know of in the past and in the future, we can see that this might be a problem if we have a much higher share of the older workers that are less likely to move and are going to contribute less to growth-enhancing relocation, which might suppress our wage and productivity growth even more. We have looked at that, what aging then exactly means for wage and productivity growth by running a shift share decomposition, basically looking at how much can we attribute to aging of the decline or the change in the wage and productivity growth between the early 2000s and late 2010s. And the dark blue part here, it's called the between part, but this is basically the effect that directly comes through aging, through the change in the population structure, just through aging. We have this differential within, which is an effect of a change in the mobility rates across within these age groups over time. So we do see that through later retirement ages and other policies, there's already a little effect of making older workers more mobile towards the end of this period that we look at. So this dampens this a bit, but we still see in about 0.1 to 0.3 decline in percentage point decline in average wage and productivity growth between these years, which is quite considerable as it roughly equates to 10 to 20% of the wage growth and productivity growth that we would have in the absence of aging. The good thing is the age structure of employment itself, so the share of the different age groups within the workforce is not projected to change a lot. Most of these changes have already taken place. The changes that we see going forward will likely be more on the younger workers, on the younger population before entering the labor market, and those that are beyond working age. So as a main message of this chapter is that growth-enhancing job relocation is very important for wage growth, and is to a large part driven by these job-to-job mobility transitions through this job ladder that moves workers from lower quality firms to higher quality firms. But this declines with age, reducing this growth-enhancing relocation, as it's stronger for younger workers and much weaker for older workers. We therefore have already seen a considerable decline in wage and productivity growth that's just due to aging and its effects on job relocation and mobility. In the chapter, we discuss a bunch of policies that could potentially support growth-enhancing relocation at all ages and lead to a revival of inclusive growth. Of course, we need to balance flexibility for firms with sufficient job security, but also with a promotion of job mobility for workers of all ages. It's important to also remove unnecessary barriers to job relocation, and this is especially the role of non-competes, which have seen in some countries, for example in the US, even application to workers in fast food restaurants, which to me makes no sense. So if we want these policies that restrict mobility, there should be very focused, so very specific workers, occupations, and sectors. But for the most part, these should be, in our view, should be removed, similar to some of the occupational licensing that could be replaced by voluntary qualification or voluntary certification mechanisms. We think that wage-setting institutions need to be complemented, of course, with policies that enhance job mobility, and we also need policies that foster innovation, especially among low productivity firms. And lastly, and this is probably one of the most important parts of the policies that can support this, are targeted support measures for mid-career and older workers. Of course, through job search assistance, also for those that are currently employed, maybe stuck in jobs that they don't necessarily want to work in anymore. So we can already provide public employment services and job search assistance for those that are employed and might want to transition to other jobs. We need skills approaches, especially for those that face skills that are no longer, or have skills that are no longer in need, to upgrade them, especially in times of changes with the digitalization, AI, and the likes. For those that are laid off, we also think that early support measures and, for example, wage insurance can also be important measures that could improve transitions for these workers, as these early support measures could set in well before layoff, and wage insurance can also increase the incentives to job mobility. We, for example, have seen that with the RTTA in the United States. There's some recent good evidence, especially for older workers on this. That's it for me. On the 9th of July, you can find the employment outlook under this link. If you're more interested in the linking network with our cross-country research, we have this link. And if you have any questions, feel free to write me an email under this address as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jonas, stay. We'll have a microphone if people want to ask questions. While you're thinking about your questions, let me start with the most impolite question. That way, you all can have permission to also ask impolite questions. So, I'm not a statistician. Looking at your graphs, there's one obvious answer, which is people 65 to 85 can't go on vacation. So what do you see, because this is a very static picture, what do you see happening? And I don't mean just let's have policies. What will the world look like when 75-year-olds have to work?
That's a very good question. I haven't thought about it too much. Personally, I think I'm still a bit, I'm too young, I guess. I will not be 75 by the time I retire, I'm afraid. So, of course, we need a lot of approaches that make it possible to work at those ages. We need to focus really on making workplaces adapt to an aging workforce. Otherwise, it will be hard.
So I want to press you. I only know the U.S. case, all right? Most people in the U.S., so official retirement, maximum retirement is 67. That's why we laugh at the French and the Italians and so forth. Partial retirement benefits is 62. More than half retire at 55. So I don't think it's make something available. I think they have a very nice life. I'm sorry to push him, but I'll do that for him. I think they have a very nice life. And it's a little bit like welfare recipients, you know? I think we need some activation, not opportunity.
That could be empowering, as I said. I mean, it needs to be attractive to workers, to older workers to work as well. I mean, that can come through different channels. There will be some of that stuff will be the employment outlook on the 9th of July. But yeah.
I'm just doing that to buy time. All right, who has questions? Please.
Thank you. My name is Per Jensen from Roskilde University, and thank you very much for your presentation. I think that there are some problems here because the main problem is that these dramatic demographic predictions are supportive to neoliberalism and neoliberal strategies, and therefore you also have to stop up and ask what is the actual effect of this. And you presented, for instance, the old age dependency rate, but it's not an economic dependency rate necessarily. What has shown is that, for instance, in Denmark, pensioners, they are net contributors to the welfare state. So they are actually a positive asset and another thing is that, okay, the working age population is declining. Yes, but what has happened is, if we look at Germany, for instance, what we have seen is that if we look at the population between 25 and 55, it has decreased by more than 4 million between 2000 and 2020. But at the same time, employment increased by 10%. How was that possible? That was possible because older workers were mobilized for the labor market due to age management policies. So there's no automatic relationships here. It is that's my main point. And therefore you should take some to present these type of dramatic demographic predictions. I think that there are problems here.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are of course a huge difference across countries. Denmark is one case where it's working better. We have other countries where it is a problem. It's a huge problem. The old age dependency ratio likely increasing to about 100% in Korea. This will not be easy to deal with. Of course, there are a lot of things like activating the older population in Germany, also in the past increasing female employment rates, the engagement of women on the labor market, migration that has led to increases in the employed population in parts. But this is just a very static view of what is going to change in the projections, to see in the other parts of the report, to see what we can do. How can we activate workers further? What does migration mean? What is the role of increasing gender equality on the labor market to counter these potential problems that differ, of course, across countries as well?
In the back. Emiko first.
It's on. Thank you very much. I'm Emiko Chiai from Japan, the oldest country.
Yes.
Today you talked about labor force, but is reproductive labor included in your definition of labor force? I mean, unpaid informal labor for reproduction is important for sustain a society, but it is not usually included in the concept of labor force. So if more and more people work for the companies, less and less people work for children and taking care of others. Probably there must be some optimal point to divide labor for both spheres. So what do you think about unpaid reproductive labor?
Yes, of course. This is all based on labor force survey data and the projections from the UN and so on. So this doesn't include any unpaid work, which is a huge part of the economy. In some projections or estimations, even about half of the whole output of an economy is unpaid work, if you would kind of put a value on it. So that's a huge part, of course. This needs to be balanced, especially over past years with the increase also of gender equality on the labor market. This has created problems of, it's hard to balance this if men, for example, don't step up and take up more part of the unpaid work at home. At the same time, the problem of aging is also that we'll see an increase in needed unpaid work, in care work at home, to care for the elderly population, for relatives. So this will be very complicated to balance. Yeah, it's a complicated problem that we have to figure out how to make sure that we can combine this increasing activation of older workers, increasing activation of the working age population, while we also have the need for unpaid work at home and beyond.
Guido? In the back.
Okay, I'm Guido Merzoni from the Catholic University of Milan. Well, the demographic trend you point out are dramatic, and particularly for Italy,
yeah.
We have a big problem there. I'm not convinced by the policy implication because, well, we have also a problem of job mobility. But I wonder how much the way you measure productivity can influence the analysis and so also the policy implication. I probably misquoted, but as far as I remember, in the 80s last century, I think it was Robert Solow, but I'm not really sure, saying that you can see the computer revolution everywhere apart from productivity of the statistics on productivity. And so we might be in a similar situation now with artificial intelligence and all that stuff, so that the productivity we measure is actually mismeasured in some way. And so also, well, I'm an economist myself, so I know that we study GDP, but again, I don't know whether GDP per capita is the appropriate way to measure how the demographic trend influence our welfare, well-being in some way. Because probably in the choice on productivity, there is something much more profound influences people decisions, I don't know.
Yes, of course. I mean, we don't know what will happen with productivity growth, especially with AI. That's a very complicated problem or question that I have no answer to. I think no one really knows yet what will happen, whether we'll see dramatic increases in productivity, who will actually benefit from that, whether it will be broad-based for the whole population, and whether it will be a certain small part of the population that will really benefit from that. We have a very standard measure of productivity here, which is value added per worker in a firm. I'm not sure that that's the most appropriate one here, but the focus on GDP growth here is because it's a very comparable measure. It's a proxy for living standard. It's of course not perfect, but even with GDP per capita, we can say that if we have declining growth, there will also be less scope for policies and government expenditure on social policies on supporting the population, which will then also have a negative spillover, of course, on the quality of life of the population.
Neil, last question.
Oh, yes, I'm just wondering if you change the dependency ratio to 70 years of age, or at least maybe we ought to start thinking about not only having 65, but our definition of the dependency ratio is old-fashioned to some extent. And I wonder what it would look like if we changed it following the increases in the age for retirement and Social Security, that's all.
Yes, that's a very good question. That's in fact something I thought about 2 days ago, and I wanted to approach my colleague who wrote that chapter on the demographic trends on as well. I mean, I think it should be adjusted, especially as we see the employment rates of older workers, 65 plus, increase over time, and especially until 2060, they will have increased quite a bit. This will, of course, not mean that this will be able to offset all of what we're seeing here, but maybe we should, instead of the working age population, we should actually look at the employed population relative to the non-employed population rather than just a static view of population shares.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I have warned all the moderators to be on time, and I just want you to know I am 7 minutes early. So our moderator for the next session, the session is migration, and the moderator is Guido Marzoni. And do we have 3 presenters today, or just 2? I know one was having trouble getting here. Domatas? Come up. Is Ganesh here? Did he come? There was a problem about his coming. No, maybe not. And I may pronounce this wrong. Heng Yu? Well, you can't have an hour.
Okay. So we just have one, have we? I don't know what to say. So NU Wang is not here, is he? Or she? No. Okay, so, well, I'm supposed to moderate this first panel on migration. So, well, I think we have a little more time than expected, actually. The rule of the game were 15 minutes for each presentation plus 15 minutes for discussion in the end. I wonder whether another presenter has come or no. And we have a little bit more time, but if you can manage to stay within 20 minutes, maybe, and then we open the floor for discussion. So we have Domantas Yasilionis and Daumantas Stumbris. You are the first one or the second one?
I am Daumantas Stumbris.
So the second one. And the presentation is on population aging and migration shift in Lithuania in 2010-24. Please,
the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daumantas Tumbrys, and I will try to speak very slowly to try to make it longer. I'm joking, of course. I will try to be very short to have more time for questions and discussion. And this presentation I made with my colleague, Daumantas Iesilionis from Max Planck Institute for Demographic Research. And I'm from Vilniaus University from here. And this presentation is a part of a project funded by Research Council of Lithuania. And there are no other interests to declare for any other interest of conflicts to declare. So first of all, I will give you some information about the background. This presentation will be mainly about what is happening in Lithuania, in demographic situation here in Lithuania, mainly in recent decades, and especially in recent 5 or 7 years. We have had some shifts in migration and in aging also. So since 1990s, Lithuania has experienced a rapid population decline, and I think most of you know that we have lost almost 1/4 of population, so 25% in 25 years. And we were among the countries who have experienced the most rapid decline in population, with Latvia and some other countries from Balkan regions. And this decline was mostly driven by emigration. But of course, we have had also, like the other post-Soviet countries, very low fertility rate, decline in fertility rate, and still have it. The decline started after 1990s, when it reached the level below the replacement, below 2. And another important aspect is life expectancy, or very high mortality rates. So it's also somehow contributed to the population decline. We have a lot of fluctuations related to middle age mortality. And if you look at the Western countries and look at the trends of life expectancy, you will see the increase during the previous decades, of course, with some exception for COVID pandemics. And if you look into Lithuania, you will see fluctuations for like more than 50 years. And for example, male mortality or male life expectancy, just a few years ago, it was 69 years. And in 1964, it was 68 years. So we have like 50 years of fluctuations. But I won't talk much about mortality. I will mainly concentrate on fertility and migration. So in recent years, somehow this decline stagnated, decline in the total population and decline and population aging. We have quite stable population for about 2.8, it's close to 2.9 million for about 6 years. So what's happened here? I will try to say or to explain what was happening here in Lithuania. So the major driver for this transformation was shifting migration patterns. We have we have 40,000 deaths per year and only 20 births per year. So we have like a natural change of minus 20,000, but it became somehow balanced with the help of migration. So in this presentation, I will try to look at the association between the population aging in Lithuania and recent demographic transformation, mainly in migration dynamics. So this is not some kind of study, it's only the overview of the statistics, of demographic statistics, and no some sophisticated methods were used, just so I will try to present what is happening and in what country you have came here. So this is United Nations population prospects. It's a prospect for births and deaths. And what you see here is a positive, is pointer working? No? It's written in blue, a positive natural change we have experienced until 1990s. And in the future, and in the recent 35 years, we have experienced negative natural change. And as I have mentioned, it's about 20,000 per year annually. So the population is declining, and it is projected that it will be declining in the nearest future, in the nearest 75 years. During the recent years, we have experienced very rapid decline in fertility, both in total numbers of children birth and also in total fertility rates. But we have experienced some period starting from 2000 of increase in total fertility rate, and it was increasing quite substantially, and we were above the European average, and it looks like good. We are going to a good direction, but if you look at the total number of live births, they were not following this trend, and it remained stable, or it was somehow stagnated. So the answer why increase in fertility was not accompanied by increase in birth is very simple, is structural influence or the number of women. The number of women at the age 1549 decreased from almost 900,000 in the year 2000 to almost 600,000 in the year 2024. So the main idea of this slide is that we have a huge structural influence or negative structural influence to fertility, or to put it simple, we have fewer mothers or fewer women who are able to give birth, and it's mainly related to migration, huge emigration flows experienced in the recent 30 years, the recent 35 years. And of course, now we see that these children who were born in the year 2000 some important macro-level issues like Russia's war against Ukraine, like pandemic, COVID pandemic, and other socio-economical issues related to these trends. What is important, you see some fluctuations, and this major peak in the year 2022 was related to Ukrainian refugees. They were counted as immigrants, included into the official population. But after these years, we see that the trend remains the same. Another important aspect is Lithuanian citizens. We have a lot of, as I have mentioned before, we have a lot of citizens abroad who are still citizens of Lithuania, but they live in Western European countries like United Kingdom, Germany, Norway, Ireland. These are main destinations of Lithuanian immigrants. So we have statistics, how many citizens, how many Lithuanians are going abroad and how many are going back. So we saw the same, not so well expressed, but also some shift. And it remains the same for 5 years in a row. The turning point was 2019. However, immigration of Lithuanian citizens remains quite high. It's about 10,000 people every year. They are moving abroad to live, so we still have quite large flow of immigrants, of Lithuanian citizens, but compared to what we have seen before, it's several times lower. Another important or interesting chart is the proportion of immigrants by citizenship. It may look very strange that we have had so high share of Lithuanian immigrants. So it's because there was huge immigration flows. And for example, 15 years ago, almost 90% of immigrants were Lithuanian citizens. They were going back to Lithuania. And in the recent years, of course, in the year 2022, we have huge inflow from Ukraine and from Belarus. But in few recent years, we have very high immigration rates from former Soviet Asian countries, so it's like Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and other countries. So it somehow also shifted in citizenship. Yes, we have change here. So these changes in migration, or these trend changes in migration, somehow affected the population aging, and you see here median age of Lithuanian population and old age dependency ratio. They were growing, but if you look at what is happening from 2017, 2018, so it's related to this influx of immigrants. We see stagnating median age. It was growing for like decades before, but now it's somehow stagnated. And the growing of old age dependency ratio is also a little bit not so fast growing, yes. And these demographic processes affected population structure, and this specific population structure will be a major driver for population change in recent years. If you look at the population above 65 years, you will see that numbers are growing, and if you look what will be happening in the nearest future, a few years ago by age, you will see that these population groups are quite large. So large numbers will enter pension age soon. And another important issue is sex disbalance. We have 1/3 of male and 2/3 of female pensioners. If we say that the pension age is 65, so if you look at the population above 65 years old, so it's mainly women. It's related to this high mortality, male mortality, especially from working age groups related to alcohol-related mortality, suicides, and all external causes of death, and of course, cardiovascular diseases. Another important aspect is that large working age population, but only at pre-pension ages. And if you look at the younger ages, you will see that we have some age group, quite small age groups, and they will got elder. And if you look at even more younger age groups, so you will see that the population or population pyramid is losing the background or losing the bottom of it. So decrease in children, another important issue, smaller numbers entering labor force. So it's also seen from this population pyramid. And here you can see change in population 25 years before and 25 years after this date or this year. So you see how Lithuanian population has changed, and it is obvious that not only fertility was the key issue, but it is related to migration because we have lost working age population. And for the future prospect, we see that the population pyramid, as I have mentioned, it will lose its background, or at least it is projected so by United Nations. So the total number is projected to decline. Of course, we see some probability that we will be able to remain the same size population, but in that case, we will need to have like plus 20,000 people every year. So it's the same number we have births annually. So for a discussion, I have discussion about migration. So historically, Lithuania has been a country of emigration, yes? For 30 years, for 35 years, we were sending immigrants abroad with substantial outflows of its working age population to Western Europe. Recent years, we have witnessed a shift with Lithuania transitioning into destination country, not only for migrants from third countries, but also this became a destination country for Lithuanian citizens. So this new migration pattern introduced both opportunities and challenges for mitigating the effects of an aging population. The influx of migrants has helped partly compensate labor shortages, contributing to the economy and reducing pressure on the pension and health care. And I will just say for the conclusion that the change of migration pattern at least temporarily alleviated population aging in Lithuania, but as we see, if migration is if migration inflows stops, there are no other assumption for population to remain stable or grow again in the nearest future. So thank you, and if you have any questions.
Thank you.
And I want to say thank you for Ekaterina for inviting me to join this project. Sorry for that, I forgot. Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes if we need, we have some, clarification question, very short. Otherwise, I think we will move to the next presentation. Are you here for the presentation? Yeah. And we will have a question and answer session in the end for both presentations, I think.
Okay.
Are there any questions on this? Well, please, the lady here.
Hi, my name is Yvette Sama. I come from Hungary. And I have two questions. One, maybe it's not directly linked to your presentation, but maybe you can answer. One of my questions is about that the fertility rate increased in the middle of 2010s, and I'm just wondering what can be the explanation for that. And my second question is about what is the population attitude towards migrants, because so it's mitigate the declining population rate, and what is the population attitude? So it's interested me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So what has happened starting from the year 2000, maybe 4, I think, we have experienced growth in total fertility rate, and the simple answer that it would be the second demographic transition has happened, because all other countries, post-Soviet countries, which have experienced the same decline in total fertility rate, they have experienced almost at the same time some recuperation effects, and it's related to postponing the childbirth. So I think that would be the answer. And what are the population attitudes towards migrant? I think I don't know recent studies, but I think it's somehow close to other countries of this region. Yeah, so Lithuania is somehow xenophobic country, but we don't have such in the how to say in public discourse. It is not the issue. Yeah, if you look at other, for example, elections, often population becomes the major issue in the election. Until now, we didn't have it. So I wouldn't say that it's very, somehow very different or some, so I won't say that. We have some problems, of course, like other countries, but it's not something.
Okay, I have a few other questions, but perhaps we can move on and
okay, thank you.
I have a question and answer session in the end. So please stay here so that. No, I was telling him. Okay, so we move on to the second presentation of this session, which is on social integration and health challenges among elderly Ukrainian refugees in Lithuania, a social work perspective by Engyu Wang. He is also from the University of Vilnius.
Yes.
Doing or finishing a PhD. And so the floor is yours.
provided that we are able to project. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So please.
Thanks. And first,
again,
I introduce myself.
15 to 20 minutes.
Okay. And I'm Heng Wang from China, and this is my research topics. And now I'm studying in the Vilniaus University, academic, Master of Social Work. And this is my topics. And following the outbreaking of the Asia full-scale invasion of the Ukraine, large influences of the Ukraine refugees entering Europe, this posed significant challenges to Lithuania's capacities to accept the refugees, especially extremely vulnerable elder refugees. Ensuring the social integration of the elder refugees and addressing their health challenges are therefore critical components of the failing humanities commit. Oh God. Oh, sorry, maybe there have some problems. Oh, God. This study seeks to explore the social integration and the health challenges among the elder refugees in Lithuania. Based on this finding, to analyze the tension between their health needs and the vulnerable of surveys and the development of specific interventions to whom is both necessary and urgent. I used above the two methods to conduct interviews, and 8 of the whom's about either social workers who serviced refugees in Lithuania, and 1 is elder Ukraine elder refugees, and they had a different worker direction and would come in the contact with the provide in-depth the service to elder refugees in their daily work. The study also interviewed the elder Ukraine, but now the sample is very little. Yeah, and this is structure of the research results. And the studies explore the both of the social integration, exclusion, and the health challenges experienced by the elder refugee in Lithuania. Insufficient social integration was found to reinforce their vulnerabilities. A significant mismatch is the identities between the vulnerable mental health service and the needs, physical health challenges was close linked to the legal refugee status and the potential instabilities of the medical insurance. Language barriers and the forms ambitious discrimination encountered during the medical consultation were found to have the potential negative effect. The research promotes the offer a macro-level perspective on the structural shortcoming in both the social integration and the health service for the elder refugee. These findings relevant to the health rights and the integration challenges faced by them. And this is the main fonts of the house choice for the refugees. But now the funding for the public housing is being cut in some cities. Although the increase in the accommodation cost for the public dormitories may seem is very little, but for the elder refugees, especially some people can work, it's a higher burden for them. And if they can find some support from the NGOs, societies, and the relatives, maybe they have to face the explains. So it's very huge challenges, yeah. And there have big problems in the economic integration is about the job opportunities. In Lithuanian societies, they are not lack the job opportunities. But for the elder refugee, they have to face these challenges from the health condition and the language barriers, the risk of the illegal laborers, and the most important thing is the recognition of the professional certificates. For example, if a teacher from Ukraine come here, they can't work as a teacher. Maybe they just came to be assistants because the certificate can be verified in here. So I think it's one of the most important things to help them to get the training program, to help them to attend the goals, to attend the requirements of the Lithuania regulation or laws. If we don't, if we don't attend the goals, maybe there will have the talent waste, and for them is career challenges and trapped them in the economic. And due to this, second is about the cultural and the social relationship integration. Due to the factory as a historical memory, about the Soviet memory, language, religion, aesthetics, and aging and gender, for example, that. The Ukrainian elder refugee not have easy time to integrating cultural, to compare others refugees from other countries. But they also process the advantage in social relationship integration compared to the younger Ukrainian refugees. For example, in the religions, the Lithuania's cosmetics remains much the traditional religions. For example, this. They have the research to make sure that there have the many pagan cultures in Lithuania, even in the cosmetics. So in there, the religion is more inclusive and control the traditional, the Asian gender discrimination against elder refugees. There, the elder refugee maybe have the more advantages in the relationship integration. For example, their young refugee and the local young people, maybe they have some potential marriage pressures, competition major pressures. Some social workers just say that the elder refugee maybe can more easier to keep the contacts with various local people. They have no other pressures, but for the young refugees, maybe they have feel the marriage, the pressures, competent with the local people. And third is about the mental health service in need of the reform. The world trauma, displacement, and life strengths have brought a great mental health challenge to Ukrainian refugees. However, the Ukrainian refugees seems to be resistant to seek the help from the social worker and the psychologists because about their have some unfamiliarity, stigma, and self-shame about things such as the service. The resistance can hinder the refugees' access to mental health care and force them to take personal responsibilities for their mental health. And of course, certainly it will hurt the health, mental health, physical health. But according to the Hermans, they argue that the first stage of the recovery is building the refugees' sense of safety. However, due to the chronic survivors' caricatures for refugees, especially elder, they continue to receive the destroying and painful messages from society, family, and international changes, and they always in the environment to face the pressure and the traumas, and so it's very hard to intervention during the process. Some social workers reduce the elder refugee resistance to mental health service by changing this name and the forms of the therapies to focus on building the new social relationship and creating a new life. This not only the theory relevant, while the traditional mental health service is less effective for elder, is also normally because the elder people struggle with accepting their safe collapse, but fundamentally because their sense of the safety is slowly resolved. The trauma and caused by the war have not ended. In short, the mental health service are emerging and the need of reform. The performers for the mental health service are essential. The daily promotion of the mental activities, especially the mental health program desired, especially for the elder, should be pointed to elevate their strengths, help them better to recognize and accept the psychologist's state, and improve their mental health and the well-being of the elder group. Oh God, geez, sorry. The refugees can accept the health care and all stages. For example, when they enter the Lithuania, they will get a white sheet. They have the information and they can use the papers to make the appointment in the hospital, for example. And they have to get the protections, temporary protections directive, yeah. And after that, this is the formal status, the refugee status. After that, every year they need to renew the cards. But however, some elder people, they can't receive in time the information, so maybe this caused some elder people cannot to renew their refugee status. They will influence their the abilities to access the health. And the language barriers and ambitious discrimination in healthcare access. Because the young generation of the Lithuania doctor nurse, they tended to more proficient in the English there than Russia. Many elder Ukrainian people, they can speak in Russia. They can speak in Lithuania or English. So sometimes the elder people will fail in the subjective. They fail, they get the discrimination in the healthcare systems. However, most reports about the discrimination is not systematic, but they're isolated, optional, and protection influenced by the refugee subjective perspective. Efforts have been made within the Lithuania medical systems. For example, they adjust including to employer the Russia-speaking personnel to reduce the language barriers facing by the elders, and the debates and over whether about discrimination exists within the system may reflect the national backgrounds about the social worker they report. Maybe the Ukraine social worker more likely to tend to think this exists the discrimination, but the Lithuania social worker, maybe they intend to say, yeah, just a misunderstanding, that's not discrimination. Yeah, but I think it's very important and necessary to training the doctor, nurse, the healthcare staffs to make them more details and to take more time in the elder refugees. I think it's very important to reduce the misunderstanding or just the abortion discrimination. And this study has some observed the elimination and require further research and improvements. First, due to the language barriers and logistics construction. And the number of the interview contact with elder refugees was limited, and those additional qualities that needed to get the funding. And second, while this study point to potential system flawed in the Istanbul of the legal status and access to the health insurance, there is a lack specific case. I just listen from the social worker. I don't find the specific case evidence to support this. And finally, this study don't incorporate participatory observation. Now I have to plan to participate in the observation. In the future research, I aim to address those elimination by seeking bonder, collaborate, and support, conducting field observation, and enriching the structure tips and the empirical basis of this study. And there I have a conclusion. This study demonstrates that elder Ukrainian refugees in Tanzania continue to face economic pressure, and the structure exclude to face the economic pressure and the structure exclude in the process of the integration, while general enjoying more favorable conditions in terms of the culture and the relational integration. Their daily mental health needs often meet through the informal rather than formal psychological support, suggesting that informed psychological activities may produce the more effective outcome. The risk of the unstable refugee states and the interrupt access to health insurance highlights the challenge posed by the digital divide and institutional integration elimination, and sometimes non-structured differences and ambitious forms of discrimination encountered in healthcare interruptions rather further attention and improve the professional training, especially in meeting the needs of the vulnerable group, especially elder. Overall, despite some shortcomings in the support systems, both the Lithuanian government and the civil societies have made great efforts on this to protect their rights and development interests of the elders, strive to fulfill the humanitarian commitments and promote their social integration and health rights. It's hoped that research may contribute to advancing the reform and the development in the support systems for elder refugees, enhance their well-being. Thanks.
Thank you, and you please have a seat as well. And we have 15 minutes, I think, for discussion, maybe less. Maybe more, maybe less. I have a couple of questions to start with, and so we will collect comment or question from the floor. One is related to the first presentation, and is, well, some of the trend you show can try to be explained with economic conditions somehow. So I was wondering whether you could add some data, some information on what happened in the economy of Ukraine, of Lithuania, because I guess that this phenomenon of people coming back may also come from what happened to the Lithuanian economy in the meantime, as well as sometimes the fertility ratio is influenced by the economy. So I was wondering whether you consider economic data as well, and you can have some intuition on what happens from that side. And on the second presentation, I had, well, you seems to suggest that there are also cultural factor influencing the perception of Ukrainian, particularly elderly Ukrainian, of the social care they receive in Lithuania. And so I was wondering whether the common Soviet background, historical background, can explain, because as I remember, I don't know if I remember correctly, but you said that some of these people speak Russian, and that might not help to be received in a caring way from the Lithuanian social worker, maybe. I don't know. But there are maybe other questions from the floor, so we can collect and then you can react to all in a go. Are there any? Well, we can start and then
maybe I will
see.
start. Is it working, this microphone?
I don't think so.
So maybe I will start about the economic indicators of Lithuania. That I think that's a good point. Maybe I should include some measures or some indicators, but if I would try to say what has happened in recent years, why Lithuania became not a sending migrants country, but receiving migrants country. So I think it's mainly related to the welfare state, to economic growth, and if you look at which country has experienced the fastest economic growth, you will find somewhere Lithuania also among the top countries. So economic is growing, and I think for the first time we have overreached Estonia in some measures. We often, compare with the other Baltic countries like Latvia and Estonia, and now we can say that finally we are at the top of Baltic countries. So if you look at the income also, it's also, we are living better and better every day. So that's why we have conference here, I think. So.
Oh, for me. I want to first to mention about the economy, because I think this is very important to know the situation in order to live. So there have some just exclude situation for especially the vulnerable, the most vulnerable people. The living rights, maybe they face the challenges. And about the language that they, in the daily life, they can just to have a social with peer Lithuania people. They can rebuild the relation. That's great. But in the medical systems, they just employ some social worker who can speak in Russia and arrange every just a hospital and the health, the medical health institution have the people, make sure that have people can speak in Russia to handle those problems, the language barriers. And and the other question is about
the historical Soviet background.
Yeah, Soviet background. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, about the Soviet background. Yeah, this make deeply influence about the acceptance from the Lithuania people, especially for the elder, some who experience the Soviet times. They can understand the paintings from the historical memory. they can feel the European people, their experience, what they are undergoes, their burgeons. They can understand, and that's feeling from his personal and the group memories. Yeah, they can just to know what happened now and what is painful, and they would like to support them just in the paintings.
So thank you very much. Comment and the question. So it also relates to the very first question about the attitudes, and you showed that the structure of immigration is the return migration of the Lithuanians, and then some countries that, as it was mentioned in the second presentation, are like religiously, culturally, and otherwise historically actually close to Lithuania. So the question is, maybe there is already data on if people, for example, from Ukraine, yes, for them this is a huge tragedy, yeah, the war, but do the demographers see it as an opportunity for Lithuania, because these are mostly women without without men, because men had to stay in Ukraine, and children. And if we success to integrate, are there already signs if people are kind of staying or leaving and so on? And also about these attitudes, we have a different flow of migrants, which is termed as a hybrid war on the part of Belarus, sending like refugees from Syria and other not so culturally and otherwise close countries. And the response of the Lithuanian population is very, very different. So also maybe you can comment on this kind of split between the response for like accommodating migrants from Belarus, Ukraine, other post-Soviet countries versus other third kind of countries which are much more distant, kind of culturally, religiously, and otherwise.
Okay. But would be an interesting issue to compare. Any other reaction on that?
Maybe I will start. So we see that there is some migration flow to both sides. Some migrants are going back, but some of them are staying. I mean, when we talk about Ukrainian people. So I think that for sure some of them will stay, and I can only guess that that would be a bigger part of them. So they will stay, but when people are saying that they will somehow influence fertility, so from one point of view, they will affect total number of births, because there are mainly women. It's not so big difference, but there are more women, so they will give birth. But what we need to take into account that people or immigrants who are coming to Lithuania, they are coming from countries with very low fertility rates. So they will affect total numbers, but I just guess that we won't have such an effect which was experienced in Western countries when migrants increase total fertility rate with larger families, for at least at the immigrant structure we have today. And if you look at the second part of the question about the different culture, different countries, so I always answer this question, which I have received from one professor who told me that we have more in common with professor, in Stanford University than with some manual worker here in Lithuania. So some people who are coming, for example, Syrian doctors, they are culturally more close to Lithuanian doctors than some maybe Ukrainian labor workers, manual workers. So I wouldn't say that the color of the skin or something, some religion. Yes, of course, we have this, that Ukrainian are Christians, or at least some part of them, and maybe from Syria or Iraq, they are Muslims. So that could be the issue. But if you look at the influx through this Belarus migration crisis, and if you look at the total number of immigrants who came through this border, it's several thousands. So it's not so big issue, you know? Yeah, but they are not here. So that won't be, it's not a big problem. And if you look at the proportion of migrants, you will see that if you look at the proportion of refugees before the 2022, then yes, this proportion was different, but now it's not a big issue, I would say.
Okay, so thank you. Thank both the presenters and everybody. And I think we have a coffee break now, and we resume at 4:40.
Thank you.
This session, today's last one, and we have 4 papers, 2 of them on pensions and 2 of them long-term care. We call it LTC. So we have just a very strict 1 hour and 30 minutes. Am I right? Yes. So time control must be very strict, like American time or Lithuania time. Okay, we can apply Lithuania time. So chairperson use only 5 minutes because pension is too difficult. I'm going to explain some terminologies and some terminal for the long-term care, LTC. Okay, first let's get started. First, we have 2 papers on pensions. One from about Ukraine and Lithuania. They do have Soviet past. They enacted the pension system under ruling of the Soviet, but now try to reform very hardly from pay-as-you-go to funded system. You have a trouble, what's the pay-as-you-go? Paid by tax income. There's a pay-as-you-go. So change it to funding system. The contributors supposed to pay the contribution and making a yield, so-called interest rate, that's the capitalist system, and giving you the pension. So and another paper is Hungary. And the Hungarian paper, they're worrying about the aging, because of aging, and then dependence ratio is getting higher and higher. Do you know what the dependence ratio is? The pensioners, older people, older than 65, relative to young people, age 20 to 64. So that means the population getting old, and the people pay the contribution, proportion is getting shrink and shrink. So that's keywords, and we can understand these, net cracking system. That's the pension system. And next year we have 2 beautiful papers about long-term care. We call it LTC. One from Berklyje, and my right-hand side, and the young man, he wrote a very interesting and beautiful paper from Berklyje.
Thank you.
And interestingly, he surveyed 5 rural villages. The rest of them, ethnographical record, he, checking. So the last paper from a lady from Greece, and she interestingly introduced that, from public care to change it to the private provision, then mainly by also the church. Am I right? Yes. So let's get started. So strictly 15 minutes, everyone, and 5 minutes and from floor. Okay, let's get started. Who's the first?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you. I will continue Ukrainian topic, and I will present part of our joint research with Ukrainian colleagues. And you can see authors of this presentation, me, Daiva Skučienė, Romas Lazutka, and Svetlana Šumska and Victoria Bliznyuk from Kyiv. So let's start from the aim of my presentation to analyze and compare the pension systems of Ukraine and Lithuania and the living conditions of retirees in both countries. Our starting point was Paul Pearson's conclusion that welfare states are PEP-dependent and only experience incremental changes, not very radical. So we based on the assumption that Soviet past created for us some system, and where we are now. Lithuania is 21 years in European Union and NATO, and Ukraine still fighting for their freedom. In this slide, you can see the 3 pillars of pensions in Ukraine and Lithuania. Sometimes you can find in some sources in Ukrainian literature that they have a 3-pillar system. But first pillar system in Lithuania and in Ukraine is pay-as-you-go pension, social insurance pension. And also we have a voluntary private pension system, and it is not very well developed in their country. Lithuania, on the other hand, has social insurance pension. The second pillar, mandatory funded pension scheme, it is subsidized from the state budget to encourage participants to participate in this scheme, and supplementary personal pension schemes. Expenditures on pensions in both countries, and these lines, this black line shows Ukraine, and this line shows Lithuania. You can see very low financing of pensions in both countries, but the differences exist. I will tell you later. About administration. The public pension system is organized around the pension fund, which is responsible for distributing benefits, including for old age, survivors, and disability pensions in Ukraine. The name pension fund is similar like in Russia. In Lithuania, we have state social insurance fund, which administrates old age, disability, survivor pension provision, and short-term benefits. Contribution rate. The social security contribution, known as the single social contribution, is at rate of 22% and is payable by the employer in Ukraine. Self-employed workers pay the same social security rate on their taxable income. The employees in Lithuania pay 19.5% of their salary to social insurance. In this case, it is 8.72% for pensions. Of course, we have in Lithuania floors and ceiling for contributions, and you can see in this slide it. Retirement age. Both countries increasing contribution history as well, Lithuania, but retirement age is lower in Ukraine, and I read a recommendation from OECD to increase it. Yeah. Formula of old age pensions is different, of course, in both countries. In Ukraine is calculated as multiplier of average salary in the Ukrainian economy during 3 years before retirement, coefficient of wage of retiring person compared to average salary in the Ukrainian economy, coefficient of qualifying period. And in Lithuania, we have 2 parts. The general part of pension is calculated according to the formula which can you see in the slide. And it is the ratio of insurance record of the person and the obligatory insurance record effective in the year of pension entitlement. B is the basic pension. The individual part is in our country called point system. Indexation of pensions. Pension benefits are adjusted annually based on a simple average of consumer price increases the previous year and the preceding 3 years wage growth in Ukraine. While in Lithuania, both the general and the individual pension components are indexed annually according to the growth of the wage fund of persons paying contributions to social insurance, the change in the number of those persons, and the average wage over a 7-year period. Also, in both countries, there are other old age pensions. First of all, a long service pension is granted to certain categories of citizens employed in jobs that cause a loss of professional ability or health before reaching retirement age in Ukraine. And the similar framework for long service pensions is in Lithuania. There are also in both countries social assistance pensions, and social assistance pensions are granted for those who are not entitled to social insurance or state pensions payments and people with disability in Ukraine. Lithuania provides also state pensions for post-war and Soviet resistant fighters and people who have suffered from the Soviet regime. The second and third pillars of old age pensions, as I mentioned, Lithuania has the second pillar as a mandatory funded pension scheme. It is defined contribution scheme. Contributions into funded pension funds comprise 3% of participants' personal salary and a supplementary 1.5% of the national average wage paid out of the state budget. There is auto-enrollment applied to workers under 40s and with the right to opt out, delay, and to temporarily suspend contributions. Ukraine started to move forward to introduce the same system in the country, mandatory funded pension scheme, which they plan to start from the next year, 1st of January. For them, wish to make it mandatory based on the same arguments to increase pensions, to solve the demographic dependency rate, and to force country economic development through investments. Pension replacement rate and poverty, the next part of my presentation. And of course, Lithuania always complains about its low replacement rate, but the replacement rate is very low in Ukraine as well, and you can see 25–30% only. The distribution of pension beneficiaries of all categories by the amount of monthly pensions in Ukraine. You can see this chart in hryvnias, but hryvnia means 0.2023%, so the average pension in Ukraine is about 70 euros, majority. At risk of poverty rate of retired in Baltic countries and the EU, this line represents Lithuania, This line represents Lithuania, and these two, Latvia and Estonia. And you can see that at-risk poverty rate of retirees is much more higher than in European 27 countries. It is not a very good outcome for our country, and is unfortunately upsetting outcome. Then we call us like Baltic tigers in economy. Yeah. At risk of poverty rate for persons with disability age 16 and over in Lithuania and the EU, and also you can see the same situation. The data are extracted from Eurostat. Average old age disability pension and subsistence level in Ukraine. This line represents old age pensions in Ukraine, and you can see nominal growth even in war period 22-23. And talking about disability pensions, also you can see growth in the war period. And subsistence level, this line represents in Ukraine. So disability pensions are based on 3 groups level in Ukraine, and you can see that it is calculated 70% of the insured's average monthly earnings in the last 6 months. I have exceeded time?
2 more minutes.
Oh, okay. And in Lithuania is calculated like old age pension. We also had 3-group system in Lithuania previously, but now it is changed. And that brings me to the conclusions. And Ukraine and Lithuania have similar pension systems in terms of their design. Both countries rely primarily on contributions, social insurance pensions, and Kati Kuito named this welfare regime as post-communist, but in Lithuania we don't like this post-communist term. So thank you, Professor Bendgreve from Roskilde University, who called our system Baltic system. The funding of pensions shows similarities by the percent from GDP in both countries, but GDP is different in Lithuania 3 times, and we have, of course, higher wages, so the living conditions of our retirees, despite the, in comparison with EU on average, is much more better than in Ukraine. Lithuania, as I mentioned, 20 years have funded pension scheme, but Ukraine moves to it as other European countries, Eastern European countries, I mean, on the same way. There are discussions in the media about it, but criticism is not very popular, more arguments about investments and so on. It is complicated to compare poverty in both countries because lack of data and different methodologies. Lithuania, as other European countries, have integrated methodology, but Ukraine is still reaching it. That's all what I wanted to say. Thank you for your attention.
So after Hungary, and so we're going to receive all your questions from floor.
Great. Thank you very much. My name is Csaba Kucsera. I'm from Hungary, Budapest, from Eötvös Loránd University. And I would like to talk about welfare attitudes in Hungary. How the need for a pension reform or modernization can be informed by consultation or social dialogue, and why we need that. So, as our chair already explained, the pay-as-you-go pension system, it is based on the contributions of those active in the labor market for the benefit of those already pensioners. And this is obviously a rolling scheme. So earlier, current pensioners paid for the pensioners back in the time, and current younger people expect it to be maintained in the future because they would like to be also beneficiaries at some point while they are at the moment paying into the common pot. So the thing is that this pay-as-you-go system works very well when your population pyramid looks like a pyramid, but it's not the case anymore, and I'm not showing that, but I will show the famous old age dependency ratio in a moment. But according to OECD and European Commission analysis, our pension system is not really sustainable financially, and we need to do something about it. But this is highly a politicized issue, and this is something that not always it is not always taken into account. For instance, when a retirement age increasement is suggested, I mean, take a look at France, what happened 2 years ago when they raised the retirement age to 64, which is 1 year lower than in Hungary, and we are living on average 6 years less than the French. So, I mean, this is not easy. This is it, the old age dependency ratio, which I believe is a very robust indicator, and we can discuss it now or during the Q&A. And you know, one of the suggestions were that in Denmark, I believe, pensioners still contributing to the welfare state. In Hungary, they are exempt from social security benefits, so they don't. They may work, but they don't pay into the pot. So, and there is a very steep exponential growth in the next 2 decades, as you can see, after which it will be more, you know, I mean, less steep. and I'm talking about the current model. So, as you can see, we are. Is it working? Anyway. So we have a very high hike in percentage points by 2020 and by 2017, and unless in Lithuania, we don't. I mean, this is very huge, as you mentioned in the morning. I mean, for 12%. I mean, as a NATO member, we are expected to pay 2% on our militaries, and we don't reach that. I mean, this is huge. And anyway, we need to be very, I mean, our pension system needs a paradigmatic and parametric overhaul. But this is something that obviously goes against the status quo, which usually have a high level of support. And also the intergenerational fairness part should be taken into account. So you cannot increase the contributions I mean, above a certain level. That is unfair, and fairness is obviously a social construct, so what is fair could depend on your position, but in any case, it must be taken into account because our workforce is shrinking, so they are expected to pay more for an ever-increasing number of older people. And they could obviously expect their pension benefits to keep some value, and this is a big problem that is reflected also in the public discourse. For instance, this is for Ireland. From Ireland, Ireland, they have a relatively good demographic outlook, I can say, unless in Hungary. This is in Hungarian. So let me translate this to you. I mean, a pension catastrophe is awaiting in a couple of years, the value of pensions could be halved, which is not true, but this is a otherwise respected online journal. Or the other one, Hungarian pensioners will be more and more costly for us, and there would be less money for education. I mean, this is the point where generations are pitting against each other, which obviously not a good strategy to negotiate a wide legitimacy for the pension system. So the goal is for my presentation to show you the welfare attitudes with regards intergenerational transfers and the pension system as a whole. I'm not going into detail. Perhaps one interesting part of this sample is that it has an extra 100 person were asked for those above 80, just to reflect on the fact that I don't need to explain for this audience that other people are not alike. I mean, this is a very heterogeneous group. And as much as we can use chronological age as an indicator, which obviously has a lot of problems because age is also a social construct. By the way, my background is sociology. And, but in any case, this seemed to be a relatively good measurement to oversample the people over 80, and I will show you the distribution of along the age scale for the various attitude questions. And one more thing. Numbers with a green background are above the expected value. This is a Pearson correlation, significantly above the expected value. And those with a pink background are significantly lower in what otherwise would be expected. So this question shows that the overall support for the pension system is high. 72% expect the pension system to be, I mean, they expect, I mean, it to provide the adequate standard of living in terms of finances for older people. Obviously, those freshly, I mean, the pension age at the moment is 65 for Hungary. We just raised to 65 2 or 3 years ago, so we don't expect it to be higher in the near future. So the freshly, those who are relatively new pensioners, obviously the highest supporters or the more ardent supporters of this statement. And those, I hypothesize that those from 30 to 44, they are probably in an upward trajectory in their career, so they may see few limits in their ability to collect money for the future. So they are less keen on apparently, according to the attitudes or expectations on the pension system. The next one, the next question was only asked about from those who are below the pension age, so whether they expect or not to receive pension when they get there. And interestingly, the youngest age stratum are very pessimistic about it, which could influence their adherence to the rules they may seek other other ways or even they may leave the country and they could go to wherever they feel their financial future is more secured. And this is interesting. This one shows very little, if at all, any difference between the age groups. So overall, Hungarians seem to agree or fear that the state will not be able to pay for the pensions and the cost of caring for the elderly. The vast majority of them, 2/3, so those who agree or strongly agree with this question are, 2/3 of the sample. And I have very few times, so let me just quick it up. This question also shows that Hungarians are rather pessimistic about the cost of pensions, because they expect that whatever it is, thank you, yeah, 2.5 minutes on my clock. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so it is not, no alternatives were put forward. Whatever they think the state should spend on infrastructure, whatever, we as a state, we could only spend less because we need to provide for our elders. And this is without pitting the generations against each other. This is pretty much an in-group favoritism in terms of social psychology, or if you want the Homo economicus the model to apply to this question. You favor you are for your own benefits. You want yourself, because each age group wanted wanted the state to favor his or her own group. And I will skip a few here. Yes, because this is the one that exactly shows that formulates the question that if you want to keep the benefits, the pension benefits at level, you need to raise your the contribution of younger people, and perhaps not surprisingly, those who are just over the pension age or closing the pension age are strongly in favor of increasing the benefits of others, and younger people are against it. And this is the opposite of that question. So it prioritizes the contribution levels. If you raise the contribution levels, of course, it generates a whole lot of problems. Your competitiveness and things like, I'm not discussing here, competitiveness level of your economy is going down and things like that. But and from the two, I constructed an index. So when it says, thank you. I find now 2 sentences, if I may. Two sentences, if I may. Yeah, thank you. So let me draw your attention to the orange bar, the inconsistent. So consistently for it, this you should see it from the perspective of benefiting the pensions. Okay, so consistently for, they are consistently for keeping the pensions, the level of pensions. Combining the previous two questions. And consistently against, it's only 19% minority, okay, but this 40%, which is an inconsistent, who gave inconsistent answers, I think they are those who we need to get on board and somehow not let, for instance, populist or single-issue generational parties to to somehow question the social contract, intergenerational solidarity, cohesion. Thank you very much. Yeah.
One just a pretty important question. Have you tried any notional NDC systems your tiers, like Germany and Swedish do? You do?
No.
No?
No.
So that must be one of a reform plan, nice plan that to stop your politicians arguing based upon your long-term actuarial projection.
In Germany and also in Sweden, as far as I know, and probably most of the EU countries, EU countries, they have an automatic balancing mechanism which we don't have in Hungary. So either you index or you tie via a mechanism the life expectancy to the benefit ratio or the pension age. And most of the EU countries have some sort of balancing mechanism. We don't have, and that's why this is about the current model. And it doesn't seem to be, here are the numbers, no, sorry, here, wherever. So we don't, we need to do something, and this is not something that the current government is willing to do. In fact, we spoke about Ukraine. Anyway, I will talk about it later because I don't want to waste others' time in particular, but I could tell you about our famous or infamous government's latest campaign now against Ukraine and the pension of Ukrainian migrants into Hungary in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I join you later because I would like to see the presentation.
Now, our next business is turning into one of headache problem of a long-term care, older people like me, and not you.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, great. Okay, good evening. My name is Moe Ashgana, and I feel great to be here. I'm from UC Berklyje Social Welfare. I'm a doctoral student, and I'm so excited to present to you a research I've done with a examination of long-term care policy in the post-authoritarian Taiwan, which is the country I was born and raised. I would say my research is a little bit different from a typical social policy research, which I try to blend in some political theory discussion, but it's still very relevant to the LTC and also the main thing of this conference about aging trend. Okay, so how do I move to slide? It's not working. Yeah, patch down. No, it's not working.
It's not working?
No.
Help, technical assistance.
Please. It's not. Oops. Sorry for this a bit disruption. No, it's not. I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, I think it froze. Thank you.
That was fast.
Oh, thank you. Magic, guys.
Good.
Okay.
Technicals.
Maybe I just... Great. Okay, it works now. All right. So this is the outline of the presentation today that I'm going to go through. I will go through the research background of the study, and we will dive into a little review on the interplay between the democracy and welfare reform in Taiwan. I will just briefly talk about my methodology, and finally we'll discuss my finding and some discussion and implication I have prepared for our discussion. So the research background of my study is pretty much aligned with the theme of this conference, is that Taiwan is also facing one of the fastest growing Asian population, and our older adults are expected to exceed 20% of the whole population by the end of this year. And we all know that when people get older, it's not only just we have a bigger group of people that are FOH, but also their demand for their physical and mental care is something become a social issue that need to be dealt with by the government and the whole society. So in Taiwan, the government has tried to implement the long-term care service since the early 2000s. And the Long-Term Care Service Act in 2017 has been seen as a milestone to institutional LTC as a universal service with a comprehensive centralized delivery network. And if we looking back to the history of the social welfare policy in Taiwan, and there's always an argument about it, how democratic politics actually play a pivotal role in establishing LTC policy and many other social welfare reform through legislation and electoral dynamics in the post-authoritarian region of Taiwan. That Taiwan just have our very first presidential election in 2 decades ago. So you can see that the whole democracy is a very new thing in Taiwan and how it has contributed to the establishment of a lot of social policy we have. However, there's a critique about the LTC policy, especially consider about that it's being established through the democratic region and parliamentary politics. Somehow the detail, the design of this policy is disconnected from people's living experience of care, which is something I think a little bit contradiction is that the very spirit of democracy is how people to engage into the political decision-making process. But we see that the product of democratic polity is somehow disconnected, is a little bit distant from people's experience. So my question here is, first of all, almost like there's a different logic of providing LTC for the government and from, let's say, the values and practice of local community of Taiwanese people, and how does it like different? And also how those administrative techniques shape the delivery of the care in the LTC system in Taiwan. And finally, I think the most importantly, if we consider the spirit of the people's sovereignty, and does the LTC in Taiwan reflect or not the spirit in this post-authoritarian representative democracy we have? So the review here is trying to present that it's a very close interplay between democratization and welfare reform in Taiwan. If we break down to the modern Taiwan in briefly 2 different eras of the welfare policy development. The first era is the authoritarian era from 1949 to 1980. 7. At that time, welfare programs prioritized economic productivity and state security, and social welfare could be seen as a state establishment trajectory that only distributed in a sense of welfare clientelism. However, things started to change around 1987 when the lift of the martial law happened at this year, and we can see a liberation of the whole society, and the election is started to get allowed, and also we can see a lot of grassroots campaign of advocate for human rights and welfare expansion, and especially accompanied by the election, which the electoral incentive drove the passage of 13 major welfare laws during what scholars have described as the golden decade of the welfare policy from 1990 to 2000. And older adult welfare is pretty much following this wave of expansion of social welfare. we can see the political transformation which empowered older adults as so-called developmental voters who influence the policy decision-making through electoral participation. One of the most seminal examples is the Seniors Allowance Program in the 1993 municipal election, which initially just a localized level municipal program and turned into a nationalized, a centralized social service, and all because of the competition of the partisan election. So, and the long-term care service, the LTC, is also pretty much following the whole wave of expansion of older adult welfare, which emerged as an institutional response to Taiwan's aging society and a growing caregiving burden. The first nationalized plan was implemented in the 2007, which is 10-year LTC plan, established a tax-funded system with defined procedure for care service and need assessment and subsidies. And 10 years after that is a minor reform of that with a new plan called LTC Plan 2.0 being implemented and expand the subsidy to an even broader category of service, and also introduce they call it advocacy network with a delivery system that dividing the preventive care and intensive care and the care management among a different category of providers. And agent in place is also a very important goal in this whole reform of LTC 2.0 that is trying to build a local level via the governmental contract, and also incentivizing a marginalized region through affirmative initiative and promoting the community-based preventive service. However, there are still critics about the whole implementation since the very beginning of the whole establishment of LTC, and which scholars have already raised a lot. I just give a few examples here, a notable example here. First of all is the restricted autonomy of the recipient. You see the whole centralized delivery assistance kind of limited the recipient choice, and service are provided in kind rather than in cash, which reduce the flexibility of the service. And we also see there's a whole system of standardized assessment, which adopt a disability index that reduce the complex need to numerical data and lack of cultural sensitivity for diverse population like indigenous people or other marginalized group of a community in Taiwan. And thirdly, the tax-based funding is also being critiqued to create a certain kind of instability compared to insurance-based model like Japan and Korea, which is constrained by the annual tax variation. But however, it's actually related to the restricted autonomy and the centralized delivery system that through the tax funding, the government can really direct and control how the financial funding can directly fund it to the specific program that they're trying to achieve. So conclusively, we see there's a bureaucratic logic of administration of care. It's kind of distant from how people think about long-term care or caring for your or the adult in your family or like your family member. So to further explore this kind of, let's say, a different logic of the administration of care, I did a multi-method case study at 6 different older adult adult or foster care called AFC. It's kind of like assisted living facility in Europe or in America, which is a service model that emphasizes a home setting agent in place. I want to see that in the local level, in the very the context of community. How does it really work? And does it really presenting something, let's say, distinctly different from people's culture, people's value, or people's practice? And so I did my participant observation, and also I did some content analysis and interviews. So I found that my findings actually found some very interesting notion or let's say rationale behind the whole implementation. There's a co-administration of care for the government trying to do that. And the first rationale they're trying to achieve here is called safety. They're trying to achieve certain kind of service safety, concretize it through a form of licensure and professionalism building, which we see as a sophisticated regulation of qualifying architecture to operate AFC, and also see it as a very comprehensive personnel credentialing of the caregivers to somehow professionalize the whole care task, and also prohibiting the unauthorized and unprofessional tasks. All these are techniques for the government to monitoring the safety or the quality of the service. And also there's a whole mechanism to turning, let's say, older adult into numbers, which is through this calculating of the care service. We see it as a combination of scientific assessments and service standardization implemented in the community to really monitor the public expenditure, and also to determine the appropriate allocation of public resources. And there's a form of division labor between care provider and care specialists in the service planning process, which is kind of trying to uphold the efficiency, but also a lot of time they ignore the nuance and the changeable situation in the care practice. And finally, there's almost like a system, a mechanism of prevention of market competition. We see a form of dilemma between public service neutrality and interpersonal connection. For example, they adopt a cash assignment system to uphold the neutrality and universality of the public service, which is the take rotation to each care providers with each cases. But somehow it's neglected the interwoven relationship within the community and the generational kinship system of indigenous people especially. And also we see the co-insurance system prevent overuse of public service by distributing the responsibility to service user, but it somehow contradicts the sense of duty and solidarity among the community members. So in general, we see that the whole implementation of the LTC is also accompanying or also, let's say, perform a form of administration of care that is really changing the whole how we think about care work and how we practice care work into from more than a cultural construct. That's an interpersonal interaction of you and your family members or the community member into a kind of a governable activity for government or for the administration to really to monitoring and also securing, let's say, the safety through license and professionalism, let's say, to the prohibit of the overuse and the waste of the public resource through scientific assessment and service standardization and the prevention of market competition. And to rethink about like the very initial assumption or argument about how democratic politics really shaping the whole LTC implementation, you see there's a form of a paradox of democracy and action policy in Taiwan. Claiming the LTC as a democratic party only based on the electoral momentum may be too reductive and oversimplify the whole complexity of establishing LTC. Right, we try to implement the programs, but a program about care service, but at the very same time, the care service cannot be the same as how people think about care anymore, because it's become something that's a program that become public resources and need to be monitored. You need to be a control, it need to be a very comprehensive upholding the whole efficiencies and quality. And how it really worked with that. If you look into the elected representative and how their decision-making process, and a lot of time they are being prioritized the dominant techno expertise, which exclude the whole engagement and the participation of the local perspective, which just make the construction of LTC almost demonstrate a form of governmentality that population security and statistical data are emphasized in this representative framework. So my final note is that in the context of Taiwan, that if we're trying to make the public care more democratic, how we say, and Taiwanese people are proud of our democracy a lot of time. We are the democratic China, right? A lot of people make this argument. Some people may not agree with that. But I think, to me, I think the most important thing is to researching back to the very origin of the meaning of democracy. I know we have a friend from Greece here, so I'm not going to show my Greek. But to me, as far as I know, that democracy is actually referred to a capacity of people to actualize their power in public realm, and instead just a form of government, which just means that they actually need people to really participate into the whole political decision-making. It's about empowering the marginalized individual to govern their everyday life. And we actually see some existing effort in Taiwan to try to accomplish this. For example, there's some community-oriented campaign in some village that's trying to resist the whole implementation of LTC and turning and try to establish their own system and network of caregiving for older adults. And we also see some example of municipal participatory budgeting. They are trying to build a localized level caregiving program, which is it's very interesting because they're almost resisting the universal or the central implementation of the service, which is very different from international argument about we just try to have a universal welfare system to really upholding or let's say maintain this kind of social service. And also there are some digital platform deliberation in Taiwan that is pretty useful. That incorporate a lot of very edge-cutting technique like machine learning to really organize the public opinions and construct a very different kind of a new form of caregiving service and caregiving policy and program. And so that's my presentation, just some acknowledgement, and thank you very much. Please share feedback and comments.
Stand there, please. A few questions. What is the exact, you use the terminology, democracy, democratic LTC. So what is your intention that how, if you have any authority, and how can you change your system into a democratic way?
Well, I think that's a way about development, I think it's about decentralization of this kind of authority, that we really have to certain.
So you mean that the older people making the political vote and to this making in parliament?
Well,
or anything?
Yeah, I think here the definition of the, let's say, democracy and the relation with authority is more than just voting. You have to engage with the discussion process about making program and designing the whole mechanism of the system, even just in the local level. Like a few example, I don't have time to show them in Taiwan, and they are actually working with older adults in the local level, for example, like in the village, and they are asking them what kind of service or what kind of care is the care that suitable for them, and what kind of care they really want, and what kind of, let's say, even the relationship between caregivers and the care recipient. This is something that need to, like the older adult or even like family members, really have to participate the whole, let's say, the decision-making process. Yeah.
Is your LTC insurance, the budget, is integrated with your health insurance or separate?
It's separate. It's working tax funded.
Like what percentage? Like 6% to 7%? So extra in addition to the health insurance?
No, actually none of the health insurance funding are participate in the whole the budgeting of the LTC in Taiwan. Taiwan worked as a totally tax funded budget.
So you mean the independent, separate from the health insurance and the LTC?
Yeah, so Taiwan, we have a health insurance only for you going to a doctor to see a doctor, and LTC is another whole different budgeting program working. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think that my presentation is directly linked to the previous presentation because I'm going to discuss the findings from a qualitative study, the first qualitative study in Greece, on the case of quality of long-term care. So, by the way, to begin with, I'm Berklyje Lyginamųjų, and I'm an assistant professor of social and employment policy at the University of Athens. So, I'm going to present, as I mentioned before, the findings from qualitative study on quality of long-term care. Why is this important? It is important because of the growing salience of long-term care in general due to demographic, social, economic, and technological changes, and the rising care needs in aging society, which put pressure on health and welfare systems. Against this context, we have policy milestones both at the EU and the national and the international levels, including the launch of the European Care Strategy in 2022. And at the national level, including Greece, we have a series of reforms promoting public-private synergies and more person-centered care models that, as we're going to see, is an integral part of what we say quality of long-term care. So, other reasons that are connected with making quality of long-term care a key policy priority have to do, to begin with COVID-19, the crisis triggered by COVID-19, the recent pandemic, which exposed severe gaps in LTC quality. It's a number of preventable deaths at elderly care units. The notion of LTC quality is complex and multidimensional, as this is acknowledged in a series of documents and key policy developments, including the EU Council recommendation of 2022 on affordable, high-quality long-term care, the toolkit designed by the World Health Organization in 2024 for system transformation, aligning with quality of long-term care. So quality is something perceived in a different way from different stakeholders and different members of the academic community and also organizations. It includes rights, dignity, safety, well-being, autonomy, focus on the experience of both care users and care workers. While in the World Health Organization states quality of long-term care as a notion that has to do with equity of access, person-centered care aligned with human rights. Within this context, there is growing academic focus also on the working conditions and the salaries of carers, and there is an effort to establish a link between workforce well-being and care quality. So why Greece is important as a case study? Because similarly to what happens for Greece in other, unfortunately, in other fields of policy, Greece is an outlier. Why is an outlier? I'm going to discuss this in more detail in the next slides, but Greece has, unfortunately, the lowest LTC public expenditure in EU. And it is characterized by a mixed LTC model with heavy reliance on unpaid family carers and informal domestic workers. Furthermore, LTC spending in Greece is 10 times lower, as a percentage of healthcare, is 10 times lower than the EU average. By contrast, the old age dependency ratio in Greece is projected to reach 62.6% by 2050. Now I'm going to provide you a little bit more detail on the LTC sector in Greece. So the bibliography recognizes, broadly speaking, that the LTC system in Greece remains underdeveloped despite rising aging pressures. The public LTC expenditure is very low, services lack universal coverage, and the formal LTC is mostly community and home-based with a small number of public residential facilities. Actually, it may sound like as a surprise, but there is no public elderly care unit in Greece. Nothing. Major gaps in key areas, palliative care. There is no palliative system in Greece, unfortunately. Dementia services are very underdeveloped, and the LTC bed capacity is below the OECD average. Greece has a mixed LTC model characterized by strong reliance on family and formal care. The private sector is active but inadequate to meet demand, with non-profits which surprisingly are often affiliated to the Greek Orthodox Church play a key role. A policy initiative in 2022 provided funding only for this kind of organizations offering elderly care, mostly. There is a high degree of fragmentation reflected in the existence of many actors, multiple ministries, local regional authorities, with key players being the ministries of social cohesion and family affairs, health, interior, and municipalities. The LTC policy is now led by a new ministry established in 2023 titled Social Cohesion and Family Affairs. This is also symbolic, family affairs. This is new in the title of this ministry, which coordinates across sectors, manages residential and community care, oversees reform process, and leads an interministerial working group. The Ministry of Health supports LTC with health nursing components. Municipalities deliver frontline LTC services with significant local variation. Approximately, although we do not really have exact data, so we cannot be sure, but their estimates would show that 34%, so 1/3 of the Greek population, provides care mostly informal. There is also heavy dependence on migrant women without formal training. The trend now is towards an increasing role of NGOs, private and social enterprises in care provision. And until recently, there has been no legislation on quality in LTC. This is also very new. Recent policy initiatives towards quality include the recent launch, establishment of a national strategic framework for LTC under the aegis of the Ministry of Social Cohesion and Family Affairs, and also the launch of a national strategy for quality of care and patient safety, with the collaboration, in this case, of the World Health Organization and the EU. Now, the findings that I'm going to present in the next few slides are based on a sample of interviewees, in particular 13 semi-structured interviews conducted very recently between October and November 2024. I used a purposeful sampling technique and interviewed academics, policy experts, public officials, managers from non-profit elderly care providers, nurses, social workers, one informal carer. The interview guide, interviews lasted 40 to 60 minutes. They were recorded and transcribed. The interview guide covered the understanding of LTC quality and relevant legislation, if there is any, perceived challenges to quality and recommendations for improvement. I utilized as a method qualitative thematic analysis. Within this process, 6 core themes emerged: conceptual and legislative gaps, lack of standards, regulations, data deficits and indicators, a weak quality assurance, user exclusion and unmet needs, and workforce-related quality issues. Now, the findings. So I will now give you an overview of findings for each of these categories, starting with the first theme, conceptual ambiguities and legislative gaps. So interviewees all understood in different ways the term quality of long-term care. It seems that there is, however, an increasing focus and interest on staff working conditions and care user satisfaction and the overall well-being and quality of life of the users, patients, but also of the people involved in providing care, like carers, also informal carers. There is no legislation on quality of care at this point in Greece. We are in a process of reform. The interviews show that interviewees agree for a clear operational definition of LTC. There is no clear definition of LTC either in the legislative framework in Greece. Also, there is a need for a definition of LTC quality. All this should be based on international standards, and there is a need for inclusive stakeholder consultation. And the second case of the theme is absence of comprehensive quality standards and a coherent regulatory framework. There are no comprehensive quality standards in place for LTC in Greece. Oversight is limited to minimal technical requirements concerning technical dimensions of care, like facility size, staffing, but basically the bottom line is that there is no interest, no quality standards. We have no comprehensive quality standards. Regulatory provisions are fragmented, varying by facility type and type of ownership. Key quality dimensions, e.g. the satisfaction of users, are missing. Interviewees pointed out for the need for substantive cross-cutting quality standards covering safety, effectiveness, accessibility, etc. The need to link compliance to this new quality standards to funding, especially in the case for non-profits. Well, there is no oversight in reality, but they have access to more funding than just profits. Concerns raised during the interviews include the intense for-profit versus non-profit divide, since we have disparities in access, funding, and user profiles. But also, at the same time, interviewees stressed the need for these new standards to be realistic, adapted to resource constraints, and again, they mentioned that there is a need for broad stakeholder involvement. In the case of the third theme, data deficiencies and the development of indicators and data systems for quality monitoring, given the lack of quality standards and the fact that there is no definition for LTC or quality of LTC, it should not come as a surprise that current data practices are fragmented and not designed for quality monitoring. Many providers still rely on paper records. Basic indicators are missing. There is major variation in reporting across programs and local authorities. Elstat is the Hellenic Statistical Authority, which collects data only on public providers, but as I mentioned before, in the case especially of elderly care units, there is no public provider, which is interesting. So, big problem. Poor interoperability with healthcare systems, incomplete, inconsistent data, in many cases, which are barrier to evidence-based improvements. Interviewee proposed several recommendations, included using the existing registries to track beneficiaries, to involve local services, to expand data to cover palliative care and, 2 minutes, okay. Palliative care and carers call for a phased approach. I will try to be fast. So, next thing, minimal quality assurance mechanism. There is no quality assurance mechanism. There is only quality assurance mechanism covering health issues in care, major issues. Many LTC facilities operate without a license, outside the inspection scope. Interview consensus on the urgent need for a national quality assurance framework. Findings on the lack of user engagement and unmet needs in the LTC system. User engagement is minimal or absent. Basically, the system does not take into account the preferences of users. There is no standardized needs assessment process. Examples of recommendations: develop a systematic needs assessment framework, and 3 more slides. Last theme, the findings on the last thing from my research, workforce-related factors undermining quality of LTC. There are major issues concerning the education, training, and skills of the people involved. Training is often inadequate or outdated, especially in the case of informal carers, which have no professional rights on top. There is no code, tax code, for this kind of workers, poor working conditions. The shortage is quite high. Examples of recommendations: develop structured training, legalize and support migrant care workers, and concluding discussion. So overall, this study offered new empirical insights into the quality of LTC in Greece, which is a multidimensional and highly under-researched topic. The findings overall assign with international challenges, unmet needs, staff shortages, poor working conditions, and the need for formalizing care work and addressing especially dementia-specific needs. Currently, Greece is at what we can call a developmental crossroads, since there are ongoing efforts to bridge health, social care, and national local governance gaps inter alia. Recent policy steps include the National Strategic Framework for LTC and this National Strategy for Quality of Care and Patient Safety, with the help of the World Health Organization and the EU. Urgent policy priorities include defining clear quality standards, strengthening training, call for evidence-informed participatory reform, but, of course, effective implementation remains the key challenge. And of course, political will. Political will and implementation are essential to lasting change. Thank you very much.
Barbara?
Okay.
You provided 3 important findings. The first one is that the conceptual ambiguity and legislative gaps. And also, second one is that the lack of user engagement and unmet needs.
Yes.
And third one is the work-related factors, undetermined quality of LTCs.
Yes.
And where's the evidence? Where's the quantitative, have you tried any survey or anything?
No. I have to admit that this is a small sample of interviewees, but maybe in the future, I mean, there was no, I didn't try to conduct a survey, which would be quite challenging and not very easy. I mean, to send as a person, questionnaires to different providers. I would suspect that especially the non-profit, because I tried to do it, I tried also to interview people that have some kind of connection with non-profits, and they never replied. I mean, the organizations that are affiliated with the Greek Orthodox Church did not even reply to my emails, which is an interesting finding. But maybe in the future, I could do something like that, although my expertise is in qualitative research.
Okay. Now, we have now 8 minutes actually, and any questions from floor?
Sorry.
Yes,
Okay. This question just to Maud. And I see the research and the title. It's about the Taiwan after the authorization, the times, right? And I just curious about that. Do you have the plan to compare to the South Korea or just the mainland China?
I'm sorry, can you repeat, like, after what you say?
Your research focus on after the authoritarians.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just curious, because you just compare the different periods in Taiwan.
Okay.
If you just want to focus on this, just the democracy, why you don't do you have the plan to compare with for example, the South Korea or just the mainland China? Because there, if you compare research with the different region and areas, maybe you can find the difference, the Westerns in the policies, or to mention the value of the democracy. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
It's replying. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Great question. So actually, this is one of my research limitation, which I didn't have time to share about. That I think a comparative analysis on, let's say, Korea and Japan and also Taiwan's LTC system will be very fruitful, especially when we consider that, especially in South Korea and Taiwan, we both experience a liberation and democratization of the political landscape. And I remember I read a book, I think it's wrote by Joseph Wen from the University of Toronto, and he had a book actually talk about the social welfare development of the East Asian country. And then he got a very interesting comparison between Japan and Korea, South Korea and Taiwan, that how the democratization and the transformation of political system really shifting the social welfare policy development, and which is, I think his argument is that after the democratization, that this country has transforming into a form of a universal welfare state, which there previously is more like a state initiative, state establishment, social welfare regime. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions?
For Diva. There was one of the graphs that you showed was a rise in the level of risk and poverty over time. Yes, and it seems to me that the guy who was presenting beforehand, had indicated that Lithuania is getting wealthier over time. So is it true that the reason there was a rise in poverty over time is because the country is getting wealthier and the median income increased, and therefore the risk of poverty looked like it was increased, even though everyone else was doing better? Is that the case?
Thank you for your question. That could be that it depends on political will. After our independence, the first task for our country was defense, as always. And social welfare was in the second role. So I hope in the future our minister advised Ekaterina will put efforts to enforce policy to decrease poverty. We have almost stable at-risk of poverty rate, about 20% of the whole population, but you saw about 40% of retirees. It is upsetting result. Yeah, and we discuss always in public area with our politicians, criticize them, and about their distribution. Yeah, thank you.
And one last question, please. Yes.
Excuse me. I would also have a short question.
Excuse me, Diva. I think one question for the discussion is why in Lithuania we have very low pension and wages ratio between the countries. European Union and other countries.
Thank you for your question. It depends on funding of pensions. So we always discuss about this low replacement rate in Lithuania as well. But as you saw in my presentation, Ukraine has worse situation, and they started the same discussions in their country that we need to introduce mandatory funded pension scheme to increase this replacement rate. But they don't have also financial market in their country as Lithuania as well. So I think they will go in the same way as Hungary, as Estonia and Lithuania as well. So it is unsatisfactory in our country with replacement rate, 45% approximately. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you. I would also like to put on a question to Barry, if I may. I liked very much your presentation, and I would like to ask you whether you have any studies on the view of service users, so what they would expect from services, because I mean, yeah.
No.
All right.
No. Recently, the ministry ran some kind of survey, but only to some types of public providers. As I mentioned before, for example, we do not have a public elderly care unit in Greece, so other types of LTC providers. But the focus is not on the preferences of users, care users. So these reports, these surveys are usually receive answers from members of the administration or managers, which, as you understand, is quite different. They will provide us their own view, but so we don't really know anything about what care users believe, which it's a huge problem, obviously.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for attention and the very difficult topics, and I appreciate your patiently listen and enjoying. Thank you very much.
And as our first day of the conference comes to an end, I invite everyone to join the conference dinner tonight. We all deserve a good, nice break, so we'll have an hour and a half, and then we meet at 7:30 at the Grey restaurant, which is just at the